Hey, welcome back to another episode of Lowcountry Lowdown. Today, we are joined by Mr. Brandon Paul. Hope I got that right. Brandon Paul, right?
Brandon Paul.
Nailed it on the first try, boys. Look, hey, Brandon, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Brandon is kind of a local. You're from the South. Then you worked in the South for a number of years, and now you're back, and now you've opened a business. So, first off, I just want you to tell the folks a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What type of man is this? Tell me about your whole life story, Brandon. I want to hear more about your experiences, kind of, going out and exploring the world and sort of what brought you back here and, want to make you start your business.
Great. Yeah. So I am from here, South Carolina. I was here until I was 22, graduated from USC. Yeah, I saw that big Clemson logo in your last video.
It's okay. Look, nobody's perfect, but
yeah. So coming out of art school, I was just very curious. How does the world actually work?
Yeah.
I was trying to figure it out, understand it all. And I said, look, I got to get out of my hometown. Columbia's nice. I love Columbia. Great place to live. Not a great place to be in your 20s.
Sure.
So I said, first chance I get, I'm gone. My parents had just moved to Florida and have a nice house with a lake and a pool. And I said, that sounds so nice. I'm a broke kid right out of college. I can't. I moved in with them for 2.5 years down in Florida, which was actually great because that was where I met the founders of All County.
Okay. And you've done a franchise with them with your business, right? Okay.
Yeah. Now I am an All County franchisee.
Beautiful. So you met them what? Like at your parents' pool, having a party or what?
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of, sort of. Yeah. There you go.
No, I saw an ad in the Tampa Bay Times for the upcoming St. Pete Young Professionals Conference.
Oh, sweet.
I reached out to them. I said, I'd love to help you put this event on. I can help you build the website, market, whatever you want to do. So I did. And then we hosted the event. And then Sandy Ferreira, CEO of All County Franchise, was there speaking. And I was really impressed at what she had to say. We're going through the line. Everyone's talking about business owner, entrepreneurship. You just keep hearing it. But she's like, yeah, well, we now we have 50 offices across the country. Mm-hmm. We're still growing and we're doing great. And I was just like, who builds a business and now you have 50 offices? How did you do that?
Yeah, and what? How many years ago?
Right. And she's, I don't know, they were only open for 7-8 years at that point.
Crazy
their
trajectory.
Franchise.
I mean, the rate of expansion is insane there.
Yeah. And she was a pretty young woman too.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm very impressed. I don't understand, but I want to understand.
Absolutely.
So I approached her at the conference. I was 23 at the time. So I just walked up to her, shook her hand, said, hey, I really loved what you had to say. Could we get coffee sometimes? I have so many questions for you.
Yeah. It's amazing how often you see that origin story of like, I saw someone I was impressed by him. I shook their hand. I asked them for coffee. There's a lot of people out there that, they're just too nervous to even have that initial thing. And what I've found about some of the wealthiest people I've, met, it's through obscure avenues, have met some extraordinarily wealthy people, just like, superhuman, untouchable levels of money. And the funny thing is they're all willing to tell you everything about themselves. You know what I mean? You just ask them questions and they'll just go. And they're not, I find that people, how do I say this without being disrespectful? Maybe folks with less zeros in the bank account, they tend to be very like, ooh, I want to like hide what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Once you reach a certain level, it almost feels like you get this immortality. You're like, I'll tell you exactly what I did. I don't care. They just feel safer, I think. You know what I mean?
Ideas are nothing. Execution is everything.
Yeah, you got to do it.
And you understand at some point the value is in the network and the ability to collaborate and have good people around you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can have the greatest idea ever. You don't get out of bed, then, okay. Congrats, man. Yeah, you had a great idea. Someone else is, a hardworking idiot's going to outpace a lazy genius any day of the week. You know what I mean?
100%.
So that's really cool. That's how you met her, but it wasn't immediate though. Before you ever got into this, that was when you made the connection in Florida then, I guess.
It was actually pretty immediate.
Was it? I thought you were in like Portland.
So at coffee, that first coffee that we had, her and her husband, the president, show up. I thought I was going to be interviewing her. Mm-hmm. They were interviewing me.
So there you go.
Like, who are you? What do you do? Like, tell me everything about you. We went from the coffee shop directly to their office, and I was hired on the spot and had a job that day.
Okay, so you were working for them before you ever did the franchise.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, I went in when we were at 50 offices, and I was they kind of threw everything they could at me. We rebranded the franchise. That was my project. We established new franchise sales website, new suite of websites for all the franchisees, just lots of stuff.
Yeah.
But then eventually I was totally bored and disenchanted by the idea of property management. But after seeing
It's not
benefit of the
overly
business
glamorous,
model,
sure. Yeah.
of course, no good business is really that glamorous.
No, man. The boring ones are the best. You got to get into railroads, brother.
Yeah, or screw manufacturing. How about that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're talking. What's that? There's a guy that made the airplanes, right? Or is he a drill bit guy? I don't know. You seen The Aviator? Great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
No, but I mean, that was that. I said, these are some incredible people and this is a good opportunity. I'm not going anywhere. I have so much to learn. So I, just like with everyone in the world, I try to make myself indispensable and valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kept serving and kept learning. And then eventually I said, I think I want to start my own.
Sweet. Yeah. So how did you end up in a different time zone on the West Coast? I'm trying to figure that out. Are you trying to avoid this? We can not talk about it if you don't want to.
No, it's cool. It's not really part of the business story. I guess it's part of my life journey.
Yeah, I'm more curious than that.
I was dating a girl in Florida.
Many such cases, yeah.
And she basically was like, hey, I've got to leave Florida. And I'm like, I can relate. I had to leave South Carolina.
Yeah.
She's like, and I'm going to go with her without you, but I prefer to go with you.
Oh, yes.
So,
Fair. Okay, well, that'll do it.
We literally opened up a map of the U.S. and looked at every single city and talked about it.
It's the exact furthest from Florida.
Pretty much.
Alaska
excluded. How it went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. But so you were out there, you were doing all types of things. Were you still working for, I'm so terrible. What was the name of it again?
All County.
I was about to say All Country, but I knew it wasn't. All County. Were you still working for All County at the time?
So I parted ways with them initially.
Okay.
And then I went to work, corporate jobs, and I worked for an analytics startup and just some other stuff, just going and seeing what I could do, how I could learn more. But then after maybe 2 years, they reached out to me. They said, hey, we'd love some help. If you want to come back and do some work part-time or remotely on our website, help us with some of the advertising projects we're working on. And I said, absolutely. Of course.
Yeah.
Love to.
Yeah. Take her back.
So yeah, then the relationship kept going, and they kept flying me out to the annual conferences, and I kept relationships with all the other franchisees, which was huge. I got to continue to help people and see their business grow. Yeah.
Relationships are a big part of it, man. And so you came back to South Carolina. You did that, I guess, with the idea of starting the franchise. Was that already on the plate when you came back? You came back for that?
Yes, that's actually why I'm here.
Okay. So what kind of, sparked that? Like, what made you make that decision? Because you probably could have pursued a path and probably could have made a decent enough salary, just continuing to kind of be involved with the corporate side of things and helping out there. What sort of flipped the switch of like, oh no, I got to do this myself. I've got to be, in it and start the franchise and take this leap.
I remember a distinct moment at one of the conferences where I was sitting in the room and everyone around me was asking good questions, and I was listening and soaking it all up. And I'm like, I kind of have heard this stuff so many times. I can almost answer all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not doing what they're doing?
Yeah.
They're making 10 times as much money as me.
Yeah.
What's the difference? And I really thought about that. And I went to Scott and I said, what's stopping me from starting my own franchise? And he just looks at me and laughs. And he's like, yourself.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Give me a call next week.
Sweet, man. Yeah, no, I hear that theme repeatedly because you mentioned, you became indispensable. You became, the best at what you did and all that stuff. I see that recurring thing with entrepreneurs is that they get involved with the job. They become the best at that job, so much so that eventually they go, I can just do the job. You know what I mean? And eventually you make that leap yourself. But it's interesting choosing to stay with the company. Obviously you had plenty of knowledge about the industry. You could have taken any avenue to go about that. You could have joined any number of other companies and franchise. You could have just said, hey, this is going to be Brandon Paul Property Management and, do it under your own brand. Ultimately, though, deciding to go with the franchise model, what was the thought process behind that? What was the kind of the decision that you made where, I'm going to stick within this franchise and make it work that way?
So at this point, I had known Scott and Sandy for 6 or 7 years, and they knew me pretty well.
Yeah,
all the good and the bad.
Sure.
They're kind of like my mom and my dad. But Scott and I were just having a conversation, and he said, Britt, well, let's look at it this way. You are 32 years old, and you're not getting any younger. So
Probably goes a
invest
long way.
in what you know. You've spent 7 years learning this industry and you know a lot about it. If you go do something else, you're going to have to start again from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great opportunity, and you're already established here in this network and have the relationships.
Yeah.
So think about it. Come back to me. We'll talk.
Yeah. Yeah. I could definitely see how, having those relationships probably help you out quite a bit and, definitely made you, more inclined to stick within that franchise model. So you've been doing this now relatively, what is it, about a year, less than a year, how long have you been doing it, give or take?
We're coming up on 5 months of the office being open.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously off to the races, I see you're out. I mean, we actually met because we do our little Third Thursday event every month in downtown Summerville. And this guy came by the first time and he had a box of cookies. Folks, if you're wondering how to get my attention, but so he comes by and, he gives everyone a little, cookie, says, hey, how you doing? I'm Brandon. I say, okay, cool. Look, real estate agents, we have property managers come up to us all the time. I'm like, cool, whatever. And then he comes back again with another box of cookies, mind you. And we still get to talking a little bit more and we have more of a detailed conversation. And, eventually we grab lunch and then now we're here and we're continuing the relationship like that. First of all, I love the repetition. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people, they have this idea of, oh, well, I'm going to make a connection. I'm going to meet somebody. I make a phone call and then, okay, great. I've connected that person. You have to continue. You have to be diligent with the follow-up and, nurture those relationships. And even if it's just going by and shaking hands, saying, hey, again, at somewhere, I'm going to be, what I mean? Whatever. But just, that type of effort and that type of repetition is really important. So in your first 5 months, what type of success have you seen? I mean, have things been going the way you thought they were? Have things been going easier? Were they a lot harder than you thought? What was going on, man? Because you're putting in the work. I can say that. That's the whole reason for that we're at.
I think it helps that I'm from South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of have this innate understanding of the people here.
Sure.
But yeah, I understand full and well, if people don't know you, like you, and trust you, you're not going to be doing business in this city.
Trust is a big part of it, man. Especially in the kind of the low country culture overall, but also, look, man, it's not like you're managing, like something. I mean, this is very expensive properties. You know what I mean? And collecting rent in some of these portfolios. I don't want to make assumptions about who your clients are, but a lot of people don't just have the one rental property. Many people have many, many millions of dollars worth into a portfolio that they're trusting you to essentially look after. And, the larger the portfolio, frankly, the less hands-on the owner is usually, you know what I mean? And so that's a lot of trust. Being an artist and, going to art school and, from what I could deduce, a large portion of your life, sort of the plan was, at least centered in the art sphere of things. Do you think that that's been a benefit to you as an entrepreneur? Do you find
110%.
Wonderful. Tell me more.
That is huge. So art school is, all right, here's a problem. In 2.5 weeks, you better have something that looks good to put up on the board in front of all your classmates. There's no right or wrong answer, but you got to do it and you're going to get graded on it.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a right or wrong answer, but we can't tell you what it is.
Right. It's a subjective right or wrong answer.
Yeah. There's so much abstract, subjective problem solving, and you are thrown into a nonstop cycle of do something, open yourself up to criticism for the entire class to say, this is what I like about it. This is what I don't like about it. And then you just have to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get in there and you realize, oh, okay, I'm kind of good at innovating. I don't actually know what I'm going to do, but in 2.5 weeks, you go through the cycle of like research, brainstorm, sort of iterate on your initial ideas, refine, polish, and then like execute the final thing. So you get really used to what that creativity cycle looks like. Business is just the same thing, except with systems. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, the exact same.
All right, we're going to throw something there and we're going to use it and we're going to tear it apart and break it and then rebuild it and then tear it apart and break it and rebuild it. And then eventually it's going to be good enough to just leave it. Yeah.
And see, that's something that I think a lot of people miss, man. Is like, there's a lot of very creative minded, very artistic minded individuals. And, their ideas, I don't really want to get involved in like the business, the corporate world, because that's very, black and white, not very artistic, not very creative. Perhaps not as an employee, but I think as, the founder, as the operator, as the, CEO, whatever, those tend to be very abstract minded individuals because I feel like that role requires it. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, look, there's not a rule book. There's, case studies, basically, right? You can see what other people have done and what worked for them and what didn't work for them. But like, any part of your day, I'm certain of this, I don't follow you around, I promise, but I'd be willing to bet anything. At any given day, you wake up and your day goes however it goes. Perhaps you've got a plan or a schedule in place, but you're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to innovate, especially with, whoever calling you, I need to attend or this, that, and the other with any problem. But I find that this, idea of, I don't know, left brain or right brain, I forget which one's which, whatever the creative one is, I feel like they're afraid of getting into this business world. But, really with entrepreneurship, it's a much more logical path, versus perhaps if you are more, I guess it's right brain, I think, very blah, 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 black and white. Maybe that's more of a, you might work within a company. You might be an attorney for the entrepreneur or something like that, right? But I think creativity is very undervalued as an entrepreneur, man.
I agree. I will say there's always this rage inside of me of there's the way I want to dress.
Yeah, okay.
Inside of me, there's like this guy that's like, dude, I should just hang out at a dive bar all the time and wear flannels and grow a beard and like
Anthony Bourdain,
drink a bunch of IPAs and like that's me.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, wait, but if I want to sell and like be respected and taken seriously, I have to have a nice haircut and wear nice clothes.
There is that spark. I mean, you got to know your demo to some regard, and that's one of the things I love about being an agent is it's such a high ticket type of industry. And so, there's not a single real estate agent on the planet that's doing 1,000 deals a year. You may have a team or a brokerage that's doing, but you personally, I assure you, there's no agent that's personally selling or buying, helping people buy 1,000 properties a year.
Right,
that's just ridiculous.
20 a day.
Yeah, it's too many. So,
20 a week.
I was about to say, 20 a week. Either way, but it's just, that's just not probably the case, and maybe one person. But, realistically, you have more of an opportunity, I think, to be expressive and sort of find your niche. You know what I mean? In the Lowcountry area, I can find 100 people that like me. You know what I mean? You do 100 deals a year as an agent, you're doing very, very well. So that's something that I think as an agent, I'm a little bit spoiled for that. You know what I mean? I don't have to appeal to the masses, but I'd be willing to bet you could probably find that as well. Perhaps it's different though, approaching large investors. I don't know, but do you find that you're doing more business with individual, I don't want to say mom and pop, but kind of like, a guy that has a rental property on the side, or do you find you're working more with larger institutions?
So I'm going to speak more of just my knowledge of the industry and the network, because I'm too new to really have a good
Fair enough.
set.
Yeah.
The beauty of this business model is we have relationships with dozens and eventually hundreds of individual property owners. Once you get all of them locked in, we do a good job serving them, then that's dozens or hundreds of diversification for our income streams.
Yeah.
So we can, something bad happens, someone loses a property or they're trying to sell off their properties, we might lose 2 or 3, but it doesn't really affect our
right
because it's really diverse.
Yeah, you're not getting 90% of your money from Warren Buffett and then eventually he sells his portfolio and oh no.
Yeah, and then it's all done. So that's a good chunk of the business, and that's the beauty of the business model. And then the other one is as I go out and just exist and meet people and I'm seeking to network more, I meet the real estate investors that have 20, 30, 40, 60, 100 properties. Once we have a relationship, once they know me and like me and trust me, then there's an opportunity there to like take care of that for them. And ideally that lasts 10, 20, 30 years.
And, maybe they got friends that manage properties too, right? I think you may be, you've been doing this for a long time. You'd be surprised a lot of those, I find that fellows with about 5 to 10 rental properties, very serious businessmen. You get over 100, they're just the loosest, most casual people ever. I just feel like there's this aura, almost like I was telling you before, I talk to the billionaires and they'll tell you everything. I almost feel like they have enough money, they just don't care anymore. You know what I mean? There was a fella, he's the he's the owner of a company called Interlink, or a mortgage company. And I think I told you about this guy. He was attacked by a bear. And he's like a multimillionaire, maybe, but I don't know. He's got a lot of money. All right. Owns a very large mortgage company. And he was hiking in some mountain somewhere, got attacked by a bear, I guess fought the bear, has a bear claw on his neck, and came within inches of his life. That's all he talks about. You know what I mean? You couldn't there's not a wrong way to dress around him. You just have to talk about the bear. He's really stoked on this bear. You know what I mean? And so I think you find these, there's eccentric people everywhere, man. I've been in rooms with very, very poor people, myself being one of them, and been in rooms with very, very wealthy people, myself being not quite, but close. But, and so everyone's an individual, man. It's just crazy. Where do you see yourself long term? Is this going to be, I'm doing this till I'm dead, or is this, a stepping stone for you? Or how do I mean, I'm sure 5 months into it's all you're thinking about, but just, where do you see yourself kind of long term?
Well, I definitely think this is a great way to serve the community going forward.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this office, this business, what we're doing is going to be here for a long, long time. It's a very tangible way that I can show up and serve and meet a need in this community. Mm-hmm. How directly I am involved with the day-to-day operations shifts. I like to think about it as the owner of a business gets a promotion when you hire someone to do the thing that you had been doing.
That's a great way to think about it.
So as I promote myself slowly over time is as we build out a good team of qualified, the most talented property management team in the industry.
Right.
And then, the nature of your job changes as you learn more, as you're connected more, as you have more resources and just more repetition, and you develop more mastery over what you're doing, and you can see like, oh, well, if we do things just a little bit differently, we can carve out a whole lot of opportunity and create more value.
I love the phrase you used there, promote myself, because I haven't heard that, but it makes a lot of sense. Day one, you start a business, you're the CEO, but like also the janitor. You know what I mean?
I'm in every single seat of the org
everywhere.
chart.
Yeah. And so it's just funny. Yeah. Over time, that's a great way to think about it. You just promote yourself, and that's great. That's wonderful. I never even heard that phrase. I love it. You talked about serving the community. I think you can find a market like this has such a need for decent property management. A lot of people, it's, everything seems so easy on the internet, but it's pretty complicated. I was talking to someone just the other day, and this is a very common thing we see right now. You may have heard, people talk about a lot about being trapped in their interest rate because it's so good. You may have heard this phrase, people who got mortgages during the pandemic, and it's like a 2.5% or a 3% interest rate. And, maybe they're, plan to live in that house forever, but, oh, hey, you just got a promotion. You got to move to Kentucky. You're going to get an extra $100,000 a year, but I need you in Kentucky, right? So in a situation like that, somebody's going to move, but they don't want to, they don't want to lose that interest rate. And you see a lot of people, who are reaching out, and we get conversations quite a bit, and they say, hey, look, I'm going to sell this house eventually, but for right now, I've got this killer interest rate. I just want to rent it out, until we, maybe build some more equity. Have you seen, with the people that you talk to, do you see more of an interest right now in just renting it out kind of like in the midterm until perhaps the market heats a little bit warmer? Or, what are the conversations you're having with those folks?
Yeah, so that varies so much depending on our situation. And I think this would be a good time to kind of talk about who our customer avatars are. Actually have them named. So there's really two people. Mm-hmm. It's Susie homeowner.
Okay.
Susie didn't necessarily expect to become a landlord.
Okay.
In the industry, the word is accidental landlord. Mm-hmm. So it's exactly what you're saying. You have this house, you moved because of a job, but now you're like, oh, well, don't really want to sell the house, so let's rent it out. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the plan, but it makes sense. So let's
here we are, yeah.
And that's, we work with those people all day, every day. Mm-hmm. The other avatar is Mike, the investor.
Mike.
He knows how to evaluate a deal.
Yeah.
He understands that he maybe has 4 or 5 properties. Mm-hmm. But he thinks about himself as an investor. He knows he's doing this. He probably managed the properties himself for a while.
Right. And this was always the plan.
At some point, it's just becoming too much. And now we call that the burnt out landlord.
Yeah. Mike's getting tired.
So it's like, all right, you understand the pain point now. You're just ready to say, you know what?
Yeah.
We're painting over door hinges now. We're like getting sloppy. All right, it's time to let someone else do this for me.
Paint over the door. If I had $1 for every freshly renovated house I toured with a buyer, and it's just painted doorknobs, brother, I can't. Look, everything's so much easier on YouTube. You know what I mean? Replacing that floor and painting that. Rob, how many houses do you seen where they paint the light switches shut?
Good bit. I seen one where the oven was painted.
Oh, solid.
They just painted the whole house. I toured this thing, and the microwave was spray painted or whatever, painted over with a paint gun or whatever.
Freshly renovated.
Yeah, you see a good variety of
Move in ready. Yeah.
and that's unfortunate, but you definitely you see everything when you've been in the industry long enough.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Good old Southern boy phrase. You used to call that lipstick on a pig. You ever heard somebody say that down here?
I have heard that. Yep.
Many such cases with some of the flippers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Put a old goddamn lipstick on a pig, man. That house ain't worth nothing. You crap bust up that foundation. Anyway, but look, it's a tricky thing. So tell me a little bit about what you think is the biggest misconception. Because I hear a lot of crazy theories from people who tell me about, look, I'm helping people buy and sell houses. You learn a lot about somebody. I've heard many, very kind of bright-eyed, optimistic, not really, worn down like Mike might be from some of the realities of being a landlord. What do you see as far as, the biggest misconception before people when they're wanting to get into this industry and they're wanting to get into, owning rather, rental properties versus, what maybe is more realistic and what you can expect from this type of investment?
So I guess two things really come to mind. One is if you are going to go get a new contract drafted, are you going to sit there and draft the entire thing yourself, or are you going to have a qualified attorney look at it and actually do the correct wording?
Mm-hmm.
And I talk to people about this a lot. It's like, sure, you could go study the statutes. You could go dig into it and understand it. You go read and actually try to figure out what all the legal jargon means and how to use it. Or you could save yourself months
Mm-hmm.
and just go hire an expert to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do it a whole lot better than you too, because they do it so much. This is what their job is. I think a lot of people kind of naively just think, how hard could it be? I'm renting out a property.
Yeah. Everyone needs a place to live. Oh, yeah.
I know how to replace a toilet.
Yeah, sure.
I
just collect a check first of every month. That's all you do, right?
I can troubleshoot the HVAC. There's all these things. But then, and some people for years can even fly under the radar of, all right, this really isn't so bad. And for sure, we're saving all this money.
Mm-hmm.
But then all it takes is one oversight.
Yeah.
You put yourself in a situation where now you're getting sued.
Mm-hmm.
Or now you have a tenant that refuses to pay rent and you don't necessarily know how to navigate the eviction process. And it's going to cost you $4,000 to $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
And that's easy to sell those people because they've actually been burned.
Oh yeah. Look, I bet you're, the easiest negotiation or easiest agreement you ever had is a guy who's coming off of a bad tenant, right? And they go, I don't want to ever deal with that again. I don't want to get out of the rental property business, but man, I don't want to deal with that. I'll say that this is the one piece of advice, and I try not to, as an agent or just, as an ethical individual in general, you got to really stay away from, predicting the future and a lot of things. I tell agents this all the time. I'm like, do not be that guy who watches the TikTok and then just tells your client something crazy about this thing is going to double in value. Brother, you don't know what's happening tomorrow. You know what I mean? You can talk about historical trends all you want, but don't tell me what's happening tomorrow. It's a guy might fall. You don't know. But I'll tell people this is one piece of advice that I feel like is it's pretty undeniable and very much undervalued is the value of a good tenant. I would take that over. I would probably, if I knew as an objective fact it was a wonderful tenant, I would probably take, well under market value on the rent. Because for me, I think of rental properties as an equity play. I don't really look at it as a cash flow thing. I mean, yeah, you want to make money on the rent, sure. But I view it as an equity thing, 100%. It's a long-term investment as far as I'm concerned. But a good quality tenant, I'll give you a great example, actually. I had a property on off of College Park on Temple Road. Probably shouldn't say the exact address, so I won't. But it was over there in Ladson-ish, Ladson Goose Creek area. And I had the property for a little while. And then I sold it to some fellow from England. And he's a nice guy. I lived in Kentucky. But we had a tenant in place. Great guy. Always paid his rent. Took care of the property. Had a lady that lived there. And all she ever talked about is how she was so happy about how clean her house was. She took a lot of pride in it. Loved them to death. Great people. Sold the house. They ended up moving on. He was living out of state. And so he put a new tenant in there. And he would ask me, hey, go, if you needed me to do something quick, hey, go check on whatever, this, that, and the other. What ended up happening was that gentleman is a townhome. So he ended up busting through the wall into the neighbor's place. And then the cops were called. That was a nightmare. There was drywall damage. And then Eventually that he had, pretty severe issues, and that escalated to, I'm not going to go into details, but there was some violence involved. And so the point is that this guy's out of state, out of mind. He's like, got myself a great property here in the Lowcountry. It's going to double in value. You rent it out to Joe Blow, and all of a sudden you've got well over, I think it was come out like 14 grand in repairs he had to do on property. This was a while ago. He bought it for, I think, what did he pay me for that? I think he sold it for, I think he bought it for 165. Again, this was a while ago. But he's probably thinking low overhead, easy peasy. And, not having a quality tenant. And I don't want to say he's a bad guy or anything. But, if you look at, you can tell, just doing a background check, something as simple as that, which I'm sure your company does. You know what I mean? Doing a credit check, I hate to say that as well, but, if you haven't paid the last 5 guys on time, you know what I mean? So,
right.
I think having a quality tenant is incredibly valuable.
Right. That one bad tenant ate up like 3 years of your cash flow.
100%. And that's what I tell people why it's an equity play, is that the cash flow is because you're going to get eventually, even if it's not a bad tenant, you're going to have to like replace an HVAC, and that's going to be 10 grand. You know what I mean? So like these things will happen over time. So, the cash flow, as far as I'm concerned, just keep that in a little special account for, replace your roof, replace your HVAC, whatever. All that's good and well.
Yeah.
You don't have to make a fortune on the cash flow, because ultimately they're paying off your mortgage, right?
Right.
So,
right. So, and on back to your point of the misconceptions, I think some of maybe the newer property owner thinks, oh, it's not going to be worth it to have a property manager. They get 10% of the rent. Like, that could be money that I get to put in my pocket to pay for the next roof.
Right.
Yeah, but the reality is,
you could save money on your mechanic as well.
Think
but
about this as an investment. We're going to make you money.
Yeah.
Like, a good property manager is never going to cost you money.
Yeah.
It will always make you money.
A good one.
Yes.
And that's the important part.
Yeah. So I guess we can break down how.
Yeah. What sets you apart? Why are you the best?
Well, that's a different question.
Okay. All right. Well, go ahead. Do your thing. Yeah.
All right. So how does the property manager actually make you more money?
Sure. Yeah. How do you provide value?
Well, we can look at it pretty simply. Reduced vacancy times.
Big one.
We have better advertising systems. We can get in front of more people. We can get someone in there quicker. We know the neighborhoods, so we can price it more appropriately. So reduced vacancy time, better tenant quality, just through rigorous screening practices, credit check, criminal check. We have a system. We follow it every single time. We have a really high success rate of getting a good long-term tenant in that property and filtering out, irresponsible tendency.
Statistical liability, sure. Yeah. It's a general way to put it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be careful with the wording there.
Yeah.
And then 3 is liability protection. Like I said, all you have to do is say one wrong thing or not renew a tenant after they complain about something, and then now you've got a case on your hand.
Would love so
retaliation.
Yeah.
It's going to cost you $14,000 out of pocket.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of these lawyers, man, really, frankly, the bigger your portfolio, the more, likely you are, because a lot of these lawyers, man, the way they look at it, if they feel like they can make some money, it don't matter if the tenant's going to pay them or not, if they can get themselves a cut, what I mean? So you gotta, if they see a case, they go and get it. Don't bet on your tenant not being able to afford an attorney, which is a crazy way to look at it anyway. Be like, they can't afford to sue me anyway. But look, even if you're that guy looking at it that way, no, some of these attorneys get involved no matter what, man. So that's all good there. What types of property management do you guys engage in? Is it exclusively long-term deals? Do you do short-term as well, or vacation rentals, that type of deal?
Here at this office, it's exclusively long-term.
Gotcha.
Then for us, that means 12-month leases, residential. That's all we do. We're extremely specialized, and it's going to stay that way. That's just what works best for us.
No, man, aces in their places. I really believe in, locking into what works for you. I think a lot of people have this idea where, I'll do everything and then I'll make the most money. And it's like, well, no, but you're just not good at any of it. You're kind of okay in a lot of things. You know what I mean? I find that if you lock in on being the best in your field, you're going to find a much better success rate, because it's very, very, very rare for somebody to have the bandwidth to be the best at many, many things. You know what I mean? And I think in an industry as competitive as yours, you kind of have to be the best, because I don't think the fourth or the fifth best guy is going to get a whole lot of business with how competitive this is. And, let's not forget, people are trusting you with massive amounts of money, really. When you think about the total value of these portfolios, they're not going to, look, as much as everyone loves the underdog, it's not always about, I'll take a shot on this guy. Why not? It's only a $20 million portfolio. You know what I mean? So I think that's a really great idea of locking into, what you do best.
And you don't want to mess with people's money, man.
No, they don't like that.
All right. Let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
This was when I was working for an e-commerce company.
Oh, sweet.
It was a skincare manufacturing company. We did wholesale lotions and creams.
Sounds riveting.
It was, I smelled so good.
I bet, dude.
Coming home every day, I smelled great.
Unbelievably moisturized.
So first 2 years of the company, just kind of keep my head low, flying under the radar, doing the job. But, at the end of the day, all the executives are happy. Everyone's happy. The business is running. We're great. Well, we started getting more aggressive with our advertising budgets because we started getting some really good results.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're converting like 7 times for every dollar we're spending, we're making $7. And I'm like, let's see how much money we can spend.
Yeah, how much can we scale it?
Because we're going to make the company so much more money once we finally fine tune our advertising. So I doubled or tripled the budget. Well, let me tell you, as soon as your department starts spending a lot more money, you're going to start getting a lot more attention.
Yeah. And that actually is a great, because a lot of people, here's a greatest entrepreneurs learn on somebody else's dime. All right. You were getting paid to figure that out. Yes. It sucks for those guys, but
and it worked. It's just, they didn't understand it.
Sure.
And it was new and they didn't. It made them uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, no, a lot of people, and that's the trick of being, the creative, entrepreneurially minded individual working within someone else's machine. You go, hey, this is a great idea. And sometimes entrepreneurs, creative types, we have a tendency to ask for forgiveness, perhaps more than permission. And, look, they don't care if it worked. If you started, hey, there's a few extra zeros on my bill this month. Bro, what did you do? But it ended up working out fine, I'm sure, right? Yeah, sure. Whatever, you're here. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But I think that's really good. And that's, kind of talking about what I was a minute ago. I think there's so much value to be learned, just through employment in different fields. I think a lot of people, and do not anybody take this as me saying, don't go to college or you get a degree. That's not what I'm saying. Mom and dad, don't be mad at me if your kid tells you that Chandler said not to go to college. I didn't. But I think that, a lot of the times, certain jobs, they don't really care. It's not that they don't care, but, there's not really strict rules about exactly how good you are as much as there are strict rules about, look, you need to have a master's or we're not going to hire you. It's just a blanket policy. And then, your competency, once you're in the door, that'll speak for itself. But to get in there, right, you need XYZ degree. And I think that's extraordinarily important when you're working for other people. And I understand why they have those kind of blanket rules in place, because they just, for every diamond in the rough, you got to, go through the rough. So sometimes it's better if you would just have a blanket policy. But if you're an entrepreneur, you didn't ask yourself if you have a PhD, you know what I mean? You know about yourself very well. So some of the most valuable things can be learned through actual doing, you know what I mean? And that's what I think people, if you have dreams of entrepreneurship, don't be so hard-headed and stubborn that you need to, go out there and open a business, when you're 18. I mean, it's a very cool story and it's awesome to say, but, you probably don't know much, and so getting out there and just learning like you did and working for the company for many, many years before you ever got involved in the franchise, knowing your personality, I'm sure there was plenty of impulsive thoughts that got in and you're like, you know what? You know what I mean? But you took the time and you learned a lot about it first, right? So I think that's probably, a lesson a lot of people can learn is, there's nothing wrong with, even if you want to break free, bide your time and, learn how to be the best first. You know what I mean?
I think you nailed it earlier when you said get paid to learn.
Get paid to learn.
That's been the last 13, 14 years of my life. I always prioritized experience over income.
Yeah.
And I picked roles where I was able to get paid just enough to pay my bills and keep my expenses, could pay rent, keep food on the table.
Yeah.
But I was sitting there in the chair. Someone else is paying me to learn a new skill.
Right.
It's like a decade of a real world MBA, if you will.
Absolutely. Because the alternative is, you're spending money to, get maybe a literal degree, a piece of paper, you get an actual MBA, but it's still just theory. You haven't had to do it yet. You know what I mean? And that's, that's another learning curve.
And I'll actually tell you, I think where this came from, I actually heard Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, one time, and he was talking about early in his career, he was very interested in entrepreneurship in some capacity. And he approached, I can't remember exactly who, it was someone who was already achieving and performing at a very high level. And he basically said, if I want to go and build these big things, what skills do I need? And this guy literally gave him a list of, okay, you need project management, you need sales, you need at least a surface level knowledge of accounting. You need to understand boom, 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 boom. And so for the next however many years, he went through that list and picked roles where he was able to develop his skills through that. And then eventually he's like, okay, I actually kind of understand things now. Now I can go do bigger things and make a bigger difference. Yeah, no, that's great, man. You know, it's funny, LinkedIn. Let me just run this off you guys real quick. What do you spend a lot of time on LinkedIn? No. Dude, you talked about, sometimes, man, I hate having to dress a certain way. Dude, if I had to be in a room, like LinkedIn speak, you know what I mean? Just that, I don't know what it is, man. People get on LinkedIn and they flip a switch and it's like they got to have, just the way they talk is crazy. I think it's just a dystopian place. But I don't know about LinkedIn. No disrespect, Mr. Hoffman. You know what I mean? But it's such a crazy climate to exist within. But yeah, no, there's a lot of value in kind of learning and getting that experience, through doing. I tell agents all the time, I say, well, the first year in real estate, first of all, fun fact, 82%. You know what I'm about to say, right?
Yeah, most agents don't make it.
Yeah, I think it's 82%. I don't know. It changes. I think it's 80 something percent never renew their license. When you get a real estate license, 2-year term in South Carolina. I don't know about it.
Yep.
82% never renew their license one time. So first of all, just not quitting, step one. And that makes you in the top 18% or whatever. But technically, now I tell people though, first year, don't worry about making a penny. You know what I mean? Don't worry about, because a lot of people they're focused on splits and whatnot. Which if you don't know, you get your GCI and then, you got to cut that up between your brokerage and your support, blah, blah, blah. You don't really keep most of it. And so a lot of people, they look at it and they're, okay, I'm on day one. I love selling sunsets, my favorite show. I'm going to be a realtor and I'm going to make $1 billion. And it's great. And they interview with three different brokerages. And, one of them's got, hey, you got 70% splits. The other one's got 30% splits, whatever. I tell people all the time, day one for that first year, don't worry about how much money you're going to make. Worry about who's going to teach you the most, who's going to educate you, who's going to teach you and kind of guide you to be the best. Now, once you become the best, all right, it's time to start thinking about margins. You know what I mean? But don't think about that on year one, because I think that's probably why a lot of people, they end up not renewing their licenses. They don't ever get that knowledge. Maybe they just find something that seems like it's low overhead and, kind of lets them do what they want to do, but you never gain that experience, never gain that education. And then you say, oh, this wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. It's not like, house hunters and, okay, whatever, screw this. I'm going to go, I don't know, get a real job. But, so I think it's, you gotta understand what you're getting into, when you start out and work for yourself. You got to know, what the expectation is. Speaking of, what has surprised you so far?
It's a great question.
Saw all this coming, not surprised at all. Foreseeing this entire experience.
I'm actually surprised at how good I am at networking. And I'm not trying to be cocky. I'm being, I guess, self-aware. I think it's very important as anyone running a small operation sort of strapped to double down on their strengths. And I realized I can show up to networking events morning and evening and keep going. And I just, that social battery doesn't burn out. I have this unique connector personality where I'm I'm having a blast and I can keep doing this. And that is not normal.
No, it's not.
People are oh, all right, I'm done. I got to go. And I'm well, I could keep going. So keep going. Yeah. I do so much networking. I go to so many events. I'm always in the room. I just try to meet as many people as I can and have real genuine connections with them. That's part of how we met.
Yeah, no, and that's such a blessing to genuinely enjoy that, because that's another thing I'll say about entrepreneurs. If you don't you gotta love what you're doing, because you don't have a boss. You know what I mean? You're not going to fire yourself. Your boss isn't going to fire you for showing up late. You're just going to show up late and you're not going to put in the work. If you hate what you're doing, it's never going to work out as an entrepreneur.
Right.
But it's so great that you love that. I'm not going to say his name. I'll tell you later, Rob. But you might know the guy. You know him too. But there's a fellow that works in our industry, and you can tell he's great at he can put on the mask. You know what I mean? He knows how to do the sales, knows how to do it. But you can hang out with him by about the second hour. At whatever event, there's all these stupid little conferences and this, that, and the other way. But you can tell by like the second hour, he just shuts down and he's like, he's ready to go home. You know what I mean? And I feel bad for him. And he's great at what he does, and that's wonderful. I'm not talking bad, but I do feel like, man, I don't know if I could make it if I didn't genuinely love talking to people. Client relationships for one. I'll go to list someone's house, and we'll spend a good amount of time talking about the business, but half the time I'm like talking about their dog. You know what I mean? I just want to hear about these people. I want to get to know them, and so it makes that because what is my job ultimately? Well, it's meeting strangers in their homes, or if I'm not listing the house, I'm meeting strangers in a vacant home. And then we're talking about it's a very intimate business in a lot of ways. And so I just feel very, very blessed that, oh my goodness, man. Yeah. You don't realize how much, this is a big deal for a lot of people. You know what I mean? It's Christmas morning in the house, they got kids, maybe they're pregnant, and this is like gonna be where the kid's gonna, come home to. And like, you see that, what I mean? It's very intimate for people. So I'm just very, very blessed that I have genuine enjoyment with, communicating with people and making connections. Cause, I'm just not a very good actor. I learned that early on.
Yeah. I boil it down to a very simple principle, which is you get good at what you enjoy practicing. So let me give you an example. I have tried to learn guitar. 10 different times, 10 different seasons of just
you like the idea of you being a guitarist, right?
I like the idea of me being good, just being able to shred and flow. That sounds awesome.
In theory, wonderful concept.
And the most I make it is maybe a month, 2 months, and then I've just set it down and don't come back.
No, look, I've started learning guitar many times. I can nail hot cross buns, but I never really got. That is about as far as I can read music, but I don't know how to do it.
So now I can compare that in my own life to skateboarding.
Yeah.
I've been skateboarding for 25 years. Mm-hmm. Do I care about being a good skateboarder? No, I just like going to the park and skating. Mm-hmm. I enjoy practicing. So naturally, I've gotten very good at it because I've kept doing it.
Yeah.
And it has to be that way with whatever you choose to do as your endeavor. There has to be some level of emotional connection to the work, and almost some level of obsession.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I don't really care about tomorrow. I don't care about the results. Like, that's not what I'm focused on. I'm just going to show up and keep doing it because right now, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's just a blessing that I love what I do, man. And I hear you 100%. That's a great analogy. I was, when I first got my license, the idea was, because I was like, okay, well, what would a real estate agent do? And so I had this kind of mapped out little like, all right, this is how I'm going to act. And this is what I'm going to wear, and this is how I'm going to talk. And that lasted maybe 2 months.
Same.
And I'm just like, oh, I suck at that. And so then it became, all right, well, I do like the job. I'm good at the industry. I'm very interested in markets and these, that, and the other. Like, this is something that I know I can do well. The image of the realtor, whatever somebody might expect, so then it just became well, I hope people like me, because if not, I'm screwed. And then by the grace of God, I found enough people to, make some money to keep my bills paid, and that kind of scaled from there. But if it wasn't going to work out being me, man, I was never going to be an actor. That was not going to, and I'm too stubborn too,
right.
And I mean, after enough time, I would have just, I can't, all I've ever wanted to be is free, man. You know what I mean? So if I can be myself and make some money, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
A lot of people can't.
And that's a very attractive, like, human quality, as opposed to the most unattractive, repulsive quality is kind of insecurity.
Yeah.
People are like, they just can tell, and it kind of pushes people away. But when you're so unapologetically yourself, people just kind of are like, this guy knows where he's going in life, and I want to be around him.
Yeah, well, because, people trust you more because, surely nobody would like plan to be like that, but it's like, there's no way this is a premeditated decision. But, it's just one of those things. But I do think that, people can smell, this fake type of, I don't know, you think about like, what's that movie that came out with Alec Baldwin? You know what I mean? You know the one I'm talking about? Glengarry, whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Look.
Was it like back in like the 90s or something?
It was the 80s.
80s.
Prime
okay.
Baldwin. Yeah. And
before what I'm not going to say actually what he did. I forgot.
Yeah. When he not Prime Bowman, but nah, man. You know, it's this movie about like realtors or whatever.
What he says, like 3 C's, like always be closing,
something like that, you know.
Yeah,
but it's just this like ridiculous '80s like coked out salesman, you know what I mean? Many such, it's great. But it's just like I feel like you see that today, and people just are like, "What is this?" You know what I mean? That like crazy pushy salesman stuff. I'm like, it's not just that it's like bad and unethical. Like I don't think it works anymore. You know what I mean? Like I think people sniff that out very quickly, and so you know, it's not just that. You know, I don't want to act is that I think a lot of people who are doing that maybe aren't pulling it off as much as they think they are.
People want to get to know the real you. They want to see the human side of you, the side that doesn't have everything all cleaned up. You kind of fumble over your words sometimes.
Many such cases.
You know? That's just how it is. And it makes people feel more connected to you.
Yeah.
Another phrase I really like is when you're vulnerable, people fall in love with you. And I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah. Fall in love right now.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it, but I've been feeling it.
Robert, I got to keep looking over to you. It's like lost in his eyes.
Maybe I should walk away, go to a different room or something. Yeah.
No, man. I think it's you know, I think it's a wonderful trait to have. And I think being real is you know, that's the most important thing, man. And, you know, being happy, you know, that's all it is, man. You know, love what you do, love your life. Money shows up eventually, man. You know, and if you know, dedicate yourself to being the best at what you do. I've never met anybody who is the best at their craft and it's just dead broke. You know what I mean? You can be the best. The best Call of Duty player makes money. You know what I mean? Whatever
exactly.
it is. You know, if you're the best at anything, if you really lock into that, become the best at what you love, your bills will get paid eventually. You'll be all right. So anyway, that's about all I had to say. Rob, you want to say anything?
No, I've just been listening, learning a lot. I enjoyed it. Yeah. Just behind the camera, but
he's always with us. Omnipresent Rob. Brandon, thank you so much for your time, man. Anything else you wanted to add?
No, this was really fun.
Yeah, it was
really
a good
appreciate
time.
This.
Well, thank you much. If you guys need a property manage, call Brandon. I'm a real estate. I don't manage properties. All right, it's not what I do. All right, so if you need a property manage, give him a call. We'll probably put a link somewhere to his website. I'm sure you got a website, right, Brandon?
Yeah,
I thought you might.
All County Property Management. This is the foundation office.
Foundation.
So that's allcountyfoundation.com.
Awesome. Yep. Sweet. Well. Appreciate you guys for watching. Catch you on the next one. Smash that like button, guys. You gotta crush that subscribe button. What do you say? What is it? Ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Smash that like button.
Smash that like button. Hell yeah. Alrighty. Brandon, thank you so much. Catch you on the next one, guys. Bye-bye.